Hey everyone, Kurgasa here, and today I want to talk about what you can do to prepare for the next region, the Stia region, coming December 7th. For this, we're going to go through a few things, such as where you want to be gear-wise, what do you want to store up for when Stia actually releases, and even comparing the 7 stars with the 8 stars coming in that update. But starting with the first thing, where should you be at before Stia comes out? Well, currently the max level is 65, so as close as you can get to that, the better. But I think for Stia, you probably only need to be around level 60 to actually be able to enter it. Of course, battle power is the actual determining factor of what lets you into things. So for the final quest of Kvaris, it required a 2251 battle power or greater to finish that quest. So I imagine the Stia initial quest is going to require around 2500, maybe a little more, a little bit less. So to achieve this, it won't be very hard. You could use like some 6-star gear, maybe even a little bit less, and just have it partially upgraded and have a decent level to be able to achieve that 2500. But of course, I would recommend something a little bit more than that. You don't want to be just the bare minimum. Right now, you can achieve over 3000 battle power, as you can see here on my character, and this isn't even using all 7-star gear. I'm using a 7-star weapon and all 6-star armor, so you can even achieve higher than this, but I wouldn't really recommend this for the average player, as this uses some pretty high tier augments. So what would I recommend as a battle power to shoot for? Well, it's kind of hard to say. Somewhere probably around 2000, but currently there's a thing in the game, the purple triggers, that require a 2972 battle power to complete. But those are kind of the end game of what we have currently, so it's up to you where you want to go with that. But I think a better indicator is potency. So right now with my character, I have a melee potency of 82.1% for like all my gear combined. But this isn't even the upper limit. You can go up to 93% if you have like pretty much the best stuff. But for the average player, I would actually recommend a minimum of 60% potency. And if you're worried about reaching that 60% number, I actually made a video recently showing that you can do that easily with some of the cheapest augments in the game. I'll link that video in the upper right. And in addition to that, if you're wondering what kind of gear that you're going for, there's actually a new mode, the Ordinal Tower, that just released, that gives you a whole bunch of 7-star armor and even 7-star weapons. So these are actually all guaranteed. So at rank 2, which is just level 20, gives you the Epidus Armor Arga, so the melee ranged version of a 7-star armor. And then at rank 4, it gives you the Belta version, and at rank 6, it gives you the Sheza version. So you can actually do that while you're leveling up through the game, and you can have that gear ready to go for when you reach that level 57 requirement. But if you want the full details of this Ordinal Tower, I just made a guide on this, where I'll link this in the upper right as well. For another alternative, however, there's actually a seasonal event coming up this November. So with this, there is going to be a whole bunch of augments and gear that you can get through seasonal points in the exchange shop. One of these being the new 7-star series Stia, so this can be a good jump up if you don't have any 7-star yet. And in addition to that, there will be armor in the shop, just not 7-star armor. There'll be some 6, 5, and 4 stars. But I think that pretty much sums up where you need to be at gear-wise. So now let's actually go into what you should probably be stocking up on before Stia releases. So first off is minerals. I'll try to get as much of these as you can before Stia comes out, because you want to upgrade those 8 stars potentials, those 8-star weapons, as much as you can right off the bat, but also because we'll probably be getting tier 4 capsule crafting, which we don't have right now, once Stia comes out. And that'll be really nice if you saved up some tier 3 capsules to just shoot up with a whole bunch of those to get ready for upgrading. So the next thing, which is kind of in the same vein, is getting arms refiners, NEX cubes, and strugments. So all these lead into limit breaking, which we might be able to do for 7 stars and even 8 stars to get them plus 60, since they can't currently do that as the rest of the rarities can. And then also for these NEX cubes, this is usually required in unlocking potentials, the higher level ones, so level 4 and 5. So you'll most likely need these for the 8 stars, and if we get potential 5s on 7 stars. Then for helping you boost in level right off the bat is getting some common yellows, which will most likely have another yellow trigger in Stia, so you can use them to level up to 70 real fast, or just have them on hand for doing the Kvaris one if there isn't a Stia yellow, because you can use that to level up as well. Then I would hoard a ton of capsules, specifically tier 3s and 4s of like soul capsules, of the stat capsules that you can get from urgent quests, because you're most likely going to be able to take those 3s, turn to 4s, like I said, through that crafting, but also try to get like Gigas capsules if you are of the end game kind of level, as well as mastery if you can get them from captains. But also, if you have like a ton of Maceta or you are whaling in the game, then I would look to getting these Addy Deft hybrid capsules where they give you 3% of 2 types of potency as well as a whole bunch of potency floor. So one of the best capsules in the game. But then for the final thing here I would hoard is trying to get these Stia Expedition prep tickets. So these are something new through limited time tasks. They're doing yellow triggers, urgent quests. It kind of depends from week to week as they're going to be dropping throughout November, kind of up to Stia's release. And then with these, you can exchange them for 8-star weapons and materials, which we'll show in a second. But for where to find what you need to do to get these, you just go to the task/quest menu, tasks, limited time, and it shows all of them right there. What's also cool about these quests is they give you a decent chunk of experience, as well as a secondary item to help you throughout the game. And if I remember correctly from when they did this for Caveris, you can get around 20 of these tickets if you completed all of the quests, and you had to wait until the region dropped to be able to exchange these for those new items. But now let's finally see what you can get with these prep tickets. So here is the NGS website that details out this Stia region prep campaign that these are a part of. So, like I said, it lasts up until Stia's release, but they're going to come out with more tasks to get these prep tickets, and you can start using them once it drops for a couple months. So they do expire, so make sure to use it in that time frame. But for the items, you're going to be able to get 8-star weapons called Prim Libras. With these Prim Libras, you don't have to worry about missing out if you're a certain weapon, because there is one for every weapon type. And then there's 2 versions for each one. There's a regular one that costs 3 tickets, and then there's one that has a preset skill, the Fix Attack level 1, or 2 extra at 5. Honestly, I would choose the Fixa one over the regular one because that gives you 2% extra damage, and it's only 2 extra tickets that you're not going to do really much anything else with. But for things that you can get with these tickets, there is a weapon camo of this Libra, so if you wanted to use it for other weapons as well. And then also at the bottom here, it details out some extra materials that you can get. So you can get some Ice Exploit 1s, a Augment capsule that gives you extra damage against ice enemies, like 2.5%. And then there's a new material, Hexakite, that we'll be able to get in the Stia region, but you can also get a head start in that by spending some of your tickets for those. You can get some extra arms refiners for a pop for a ticket, some extra NEX cubes, 5 per ticket up to 5, and then special scratch tickets if you wanted to spend it on that. But talking about the Prim Libras again, they actually detail out what is going to be on those weapons. Like I said, it's an 8-star weapon, but it's going to be an ice element series. It's going to do extra element damage, and especially so against ice weak enemies. And then it's going to actually come with some augments affixed to it already. So Vardy Soul 3, Trippables, Ultra Creta, and a new augment, Ice Exploit 2. We've only had Exploit 1 so far, so there's going to be some extra damage towards ice enemies on top of that. Probably a difference of like 0.5% or even a whole percent. But it also even details out the attack power of what these weapons are going to have. So before enhancement, it's going to be 436, so that's the base power. But once you enhance it to plus 50, it goes up to 601. And then for its potential, it's going to have something pretty unique, a potency plus 18%, but then an HP recovery by 4% every 10 seconds. And the effect starts 10 seconds after being equipped. And this is only the level 1 version, so it's probably going to even be better than that. So this weapon is definitely going to be good against ice weak enemies, but also might be good in content where you don't want to die as much, such as like Darkfall's R.2 or Round 2, the Ordinal Tower, and even Trinitas or the Geometric Labyrinth. But now that we have all this information, now you're probably wondering, how does this all stack up against something like a 7-star or anything else that we have in the game currently? Well, funnily enough, these weapons have a lot lower attack power than what we have for 7 stars. So we have 601 for these Prim Libras. When we look at these 7 stars, they're all around 670 or a little bit higher. So I guess that just means that these 8 stars are just worse, or maybe this is just an introductory one. Well, I think there's a little bit something different going on here. First off, elemental weapons always have an extra damage bonus, no matter what they're facing. They get a natural 10% damage to anything that they face, and then a 15% extra damage if they're facing something of their weakness, so that ice weakness for those Prim Libras. So if we were to multiply that original 601 number by that 10% or 15%, it'd basically add up right around what these are. But now there's a bigger question. Are these 8 stars going to have the same variance as these 7 stars then? So right now these have 50 to 100%, but if we look at previous weapons, they had 75 to 100%, or like 70 to 100%, including that Prim sword that this Prim Libra is kind of based off of. Let's actually take a look at a damage calculator to make this comparison. So with this, we are going to be level 70, which is going to be the cap of Stia. And at first, I'm going to leave the enemy level at level 60. So something that we might get introduced to at Stia. And then for the add-on skills, I left the Braver and Fighter ones at level 15 because I think most players would have it there. And then for the gear, we're going to be using that Prim Libra weapon with all the best in slot Augs that we currently have, as well as Ephitus Armor Belta. So with this, for our first comparison, we're going to be doing an estimated floor of 50%, so just like 7 stars. And then for the estimated potency, we're going to be doing 25% as like a potential 4 for the Prim Libra, but we don't exactly know for sure what it's going to end up being. This is kind of just a guesstimate. Before this, I'm going to hide myself so you can see the whole chart, but we're going to be using level 60s as our first example. And as you can see here, the Prim Libra kind of outperforms pretty much everything, unless if it has somewhat of a fixa. And this is just as a baseline against enemies that aren't weak to ice. For enemies that are weak to ice, you see that 4.55% increase. That is what is happening. So this outbeats just pretty much everything else on the board by at least almost like 2%. So I would say for the current high rank zones in Alio, Ratem, and Caveris, I would just use this Prim Libra for that in comparison to everything else, unless you have already that really high fixa, but that's not very likely. But now let's look at level 65, which I think is going to be the combat zones for Stia. So you'll actually see a shift into more green for the 7 stars. This is because they have that initial higher attack power. They're getting more benefit from having that against those defenses. So with this though, you can see that this Libra, when it's hitting ice weak enemies, is pretty much still dominating the field. The only thing that's better than it is actually a Rugged Pursuit, Fatal 5, and it's only by a small margin. But at least when you're facing enemies that aren't weak to ice, you can start to see that these 7 stars are actually catching up, and they're only off by like a few percent if they have no fixa, but are actually overtaking it with a fixa. But now let's look at level 70 enemies, or enemies that are going to be like a urgent quest in Stia. So for this, you'll see another shift to where 7 stars actually with no fixa are going to start doing more damage than a fixed attack 1 Libra, as long as it's not an ice weak enemy. But if it is, then you still need around a fixa 3 to start seeing a jump ahead of this Libra. But actually, I don't think there's a whole bunch of enemies that are going to be at this level point that are going to be ice weak. Unless, of course, they do something with urgent quests in Stia where they're going to be ice weak. But I have a feeling they're actually going to be fire weak, believe it or not. Now let's move on to the final level point, the level point of what Gigantics are going to be, level 74, and see where it turns out there. So actually, the 7 stars are going to start dominating here against Gigantics. So the regular no fixa like Ruggeds, even Obsidia, is going to start getting close to the ice weak point or even better than it. And if you have a fixa, it's guaranteed to be better than that ice weakness attack 1. It's definitely an interesting dynamic between the 7 stars and 8 stars. It's like sometimes 8 stars are going to be better and then by a good margin from the 7 stars, but then at some points the 7 stars are going to overturn the 8 stars. But I don't think this is going to be the case for everything, however, because I think this Prim Libra is an introductory weapon, just like how Evil Eclipse was to Caveris. So if we see more 8 stars, they're more likely going to be way better than this Prim Libra, so then 7 stars won't really have much of a chance. And then also, if we're wrong about this Prim Libra having a 50% floor, and instead it has something like 70% like the Prim that it's based off of, then like everything doesn't even come close. It's just always going to be better. So what would I recommend that you do? Well, if you already have an upgraded 7 star, I would just not worry about the introductory 8 stars. Maybe when we see the higher 8 stars, then think about switching if it's going to be a good percent difference. But even then, I think the 7 star is going to be close enough where you don't really need to make that change. It's only if you want to do better in like purple triggers, or whatever kind of modes that they introduce to us in Stia. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys for preparing for the next region. So just as a recap, make sure you get all of the story done. Try to get to level 65 if you can. Try to get around 60% potency in the type of damage that you are doing. And then also try to hoard a whole bunch of minerals, materials, augments, all that sort of stuff, and take advantage of the campaigns going on, the seasonal events, and maybe get that head start with those prep tickets for the 8-star weapons and even those minerals like the hexakite, which is probably going to be required for upgrading those potentials. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.